Okay, sige. Game na. Okay.
Okay.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Doing another interesting conversation with an AI practitioner. My teammate today is Bernadette Misa, who I worked in several projects before. So hi Berna, maybe introduce yourself for the benefit of our viewers, and your background. What have you been up to?
Yeah. Hey Doc. Hey everyone. Again, like thanks for inviting me here. Um, Siguro, a quick intro about me. I I'm a computer science grad, and I I fell in love with AI. Um, I way back 2017, I entered at Gcash as a data science intern. So it was funny because during that time there wasn't any posting about any data science stuff, but I did my research, and in the Philippines there were just very few companies who actually are doing data science or AI related stuff, and not just the analytics part. Um, and then yeah, so I did that, and during that time, Doc Erica Fee was actually she just came back from Singapore and set up the MS Data Science and AIM. So really interesting times. After my internship with Gcash, I joined Accenture. I'm part of the Liquid Studio. So basically, that's our innovation arm, wherein my one of my roles was to pitch AI/data science solutions to companies, and yeah, create MVPs for them. Yeah, and then after having experienced corporate, um, I joined AI startup. I met the founder because I actually volunteered to become a mentor in for the Women Foundation. So while I was
FDW,
still in
yeah.
Accenture, yeah, FTW, again, like I really love AI data science, and I wanted more people to be educated about it. That's why I supported Kara, and also like Carlo, and yeah, and the other founders for the boot camp. So again, for the Women Foundation, it's actually still up and running up till now, and I'm proud of the women that have gone through the program and really like reskilled and upskilled their lives. So it's basically a scholarship program for women, um, so that they can learn about AI and data science.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
heard a lot of good things about FTW. In fact, I think in an older podcast, I spoke to Cara Wilson, so it's really good. So you were part pala of that parang founding team.
um, funny story, right? Because when I graduated, I actually applied to become one of their batch one scholars.
Mm.
But then when the results were out, I was already accepted in Accenture. So
Mm.
hindi na ako accepted kasi overqualified na, because I already
Wow.
had like
Yeah.
something related to data science. But I really wanted to be part of the community. That's why I told like sila Cara, sila Carlo that I really wanted to be part. Like I'd sign up as a teaching assistant, and that's how I got involved in the community. Yeah,
Yeah.
and okay, go on.
No, I was gonna ask, what was it like during that time? This was circa 2018, 2017, diba? Na,
Yeah, yeah,
starting out. Kasi I know that was early days then for AIM, for AAP.
yep,
Parang feeling ko nga that was the pivot point when I think data
yeah.
science became mainstream sa Philippines. No? So how was it like at that time for you?
Um, for me, it was again, it was really important because there wasn't a community about AI data science na very close knit. There were during that time there were also like AI Pilipinas hosting like few meetups that will talk about AI topics, issues, but there is merit in having like a full end-to-end scholarship boot camp that really takes a person from 0 to 1 for your AI data science skills. Again, ang goal nun is to have your foot in the door,
Mm.
meaning it doesn't matter like who you are, where you come from. As long as you've got that learning attitude, you can actually break into the space. And I guess this can also be applied with anything that you actually want to do, because anything can be learned. And half of the battle is having that attitude. And then the second one is, of course, like knowing which things to actually learn. But those things are ever changing. That's why, again, a community is very important, kasi yung network effects and yung support system of you guys going together, and and basically going through a difficult journey together. Mas ano siya, mas effective siya in terms of completion rate and actual change. Yun. And that's why I'm grateful for that community, because that's what it provided actually. And during this time, wala pa ring mga programs about AI data science. AIM was just starting out. So again, you get to be um basically, you got to talk with those kinds of people, and also yung mga talagang practitioners. That's why very that was really a good program. And then after that, nagkaroon na ng other communities yan, like Esquelabs, tapos nagkaroon na rin ng mga master's program in different universities like UP, UANP, etc. So yeah.
Yeah, it's good you started the chat with education, no? Because I think
Mm-hmm.
that still remains kind of a big bottleneck even up to now. Although, yun nga, it's a far cry na from 2018. This is 5 years later. We have more schools offering mga courses, and
Yeah.
then you have
We have Sparta also.
the Project Sparta already came, and then the boot camps like FTW. You have Esquelabs. But I noticed, obviously, this is coming from a more recent experience with this training provider that basically defrauded their trainees. No, it's another topic for another time.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about, if you can put yourselves in the shoes of people starting out, just how easy or hard it is for people to start learning, data analytics, science, data science, all that stuff.
From today's context, or from
Yep.
like 2018's context?
Or comparisons, no? Kasi you were there at the start, tapos ngayon, I don't know how in touch you are
Ah,
with the mainstream. Ano yung ano mo? Any thoughts about how easy or hard it is to get started?
okay. So I guess, like, again, with from previous context, uh that was 5 years ago. It really mattered that you have a community. Again, that's what made it easier, because again, there's actually a lot of like information available, but you don't know which one is high signal versus just noise, right?
Right,
It
right.
still applies to now, but I guess the main difference is that I'm gonna say that it's easier to learn it these days.
It's
But again,
easier.
you will have you will still have the same problem, or maybe more problem, about which is noise and which is the high signal, right? But um I think it's easier because, again, like, you can play around right away with the outcomes. And basically, educators can focus more on teaching about the mindset and the attitude. For a side note, I also taught AI data science, like in Singapore during the pandemic. Sorry for another time. And I always tell my students that with AI or data science, um, knowing which questions to ask is already solving half of the problem, because
Correct.
it's really all about the scope, the framing, etc. And actually, that is mas ganon yung data science, because again, like, AI is different, data science is different. If you're talking about data science, it really matters yung scoping of the problem, because if you frame a problem like this way, yung solution set mo will be limited to that frame. What if mali yung tanong? So ganun siya. It's really, how do you turn a business problem or whatever kind of problem into a data science problem. So yeah,
Yeah, that's actually
that's
quite insightful kasi parang I don't know if it's a bias that I'm seeing, but most of the boot camps, at least sa mga the ones I'm seeing, no, they have a high emphasis on kind of the technical skills that you need, mostly software
Ah,
development. Parang, oh, you need to learn SQL, Python, Excel, Power
ah,
BI. I think those are, I think, very practical. Pero I don't see enough discussion on like the mindset, no, of a data
yeah.
analyst. Diba? Parang,
That
or how do you attack a
that
problem? Paano yon? How did you
yeah.
do it when it was your
That
your journey?
that's actually very funny, right? Because again, before I was a comp sci major, I was actually a business and accountancy major. And when I took the computer science course, I really love the part wherein you have to break down the problem into smaller problems so that you can find better solutions. It's
Mhm.
really the critical thinking and creative problem solving. Tapos, pag coding part na, meaning, okay, you have like your working solution and kailangan mo na siyang i-implement. That's what I actually didn't like the most because, there's yun na yung parang rules about programming and you have to do the again, play by the book of whatever programming language that you're using, parang
Mm,
ganyan.
mm,
But now, again, with the advent of your let's say generative AI, etc., your tool of solving is actually adapting to the user.
right.
Meaning, kung dati the user will have to adapt to whatever is the tool that's available,
Mhm.
yung rules nun. But now with generative AI, yung prompting, baliktad. And this, uh, last year lang yun technically naging widely available. And that's why I believe it's easier to learn nowadays because of that specific um, innovation. Kasi nga, like, again, saan ka nakakita na yung solution set yung nag-a-adapt sa user?
Oo nga eh.
That's it. And
Ah,
and now you can have more emphasis on really asking the questions, iterating it. And then you can then later on pwede, if you want to deep dive on how it was literally um done, right, under the hood, yeah, you can do that. But you don't, hindi na kailangan na laging bottom up approach because that's how it's usually taught. But
mm,
the when I was learning it, it can actually be top down. Kasi I experienced na people are taught like C, assembly,
mhm,
and then
mhm,
saka pa yung mga fun stuff, right? But what I learned when I was teaching stuff, and also from one of my mentors, Xavier, Puss, is really you have to to show them what it's for, what are you learning, and what it can actually solve. So once you have that hook, right, it will depend on the person how deep they want to go and how fast they actually want to learn it. Because for example, in like less than 30 minutes, you're able to show people that hey, you can actually create a program and then classify whether this is a cat or a dog. It's
mm,
like giving them the actual superpower, right? So mas ganun yung approach. But also, again, for me, before I even start that specific module in teaching, I actually teach about um the AI ethics or safety first
mhm,
because my analogy is that I don't know also why this is not the standard, right? But when you teach people how to fire a gun, you always teach them the four gun safety protocols first because again, like holding a gun is a neutral thing. It depends on the wielder what it's going to be used for, but it's the same with technology like AI because you can do a lot with it. It's a neutral thing, but you can do a lot of good with it, or you can also do a lot of bad with it unintentionally. So
mm,
yung concept ng unintended consequences, I actually start with that when I was like teaching AI data science. That was the first module, like the mindset thing. trying to explain the kind of mindset that one should have whenever learning about these kinds of things. Because actually, that's the harder part to teach.
Yun nga, I noticed, this is just from just meeting people. The fact kasi that you need to absorb kind of a lot of parang technical information, like how do you write the
Mm.
code, how do you operate the software. That's one part, ano. And then the other part, of which I'm a little iffy na nga these days, um, it's the way that math is part of the process, pero it's very intrusive for me. Parang there was this
Mm.
one post I saw sa LinkedIn. Sinabi nung writer, don't teach math first before when learning data science. And then kasi 'di ba pag mga LinkedIn posts, you only see the first two lines and then you don't click ano na yun na yun. So people started bashing him, no? Like what? How do you do models without math? And then yung pala, ang point niya, you teach it later. Unahin mo yung
Mm.
actual project,
Yeah.
sample implementation, so that when people get the hang of it, then they'll start,
Mhm.
being more curious about what the hell's happening under the hood. Ito pala
Yes.
yan. So, differential equations, gradient descent. So, I kind of believe that kasi yun nga parang if you start with that hard mathematics, there aren't that many people who would love mathematics upfront. They'll probably love it eventually. So you turn a lot of people off. Parang it sounds so tuloy, the
Mhm.
practice sounds much harder than it is. So nandyan. So you
Yep.
have the technical stuff, the math, and then what you're saying about the ethics and the unintended consequences, that's really more in the area of kind of the domain knowledge, no? And domain knowledge sometimes kasi is misnomer pero it can be knowledge of a field, it can be knowledge of an application area, like you're a finance person. Like ako, I came from finance, so I know that field.
Mhm.
So I bring all of these tools into that field. But it's also in a way knowledge of like ethics, the right thing to do, how to avoid dangers, how to keep it safe. Parang
Mhm.
yun yung nalalaglag palagi. Everyone's too busy on figure out the use case or building applications. They forget na there is there is someone who will use this stuff and it can be dangerous for them, no? So I like that you start with that first and you go backwards and see how well people appreciate it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so anyway, it's great. So you were talking about I remember right before we started, like kasi right now you're clearly not active in that much in AI anymore, no? You're into
Mhm.
web3 and gaming. So can you maybe give like a brief timeline? Ano ba nangyari, no?
Okay, okay.
How did that
Sige.
happen?
I'm just gonna go back dun sa, okay, after working with Accenture, I joined an AI startup, impact startup.
Mhm.
And that's how I get to work with you, Doc, diba? During that time, 2020,
Pandemic.
the pandemic, what we were actually doing was um, we helped crafted yung AI regulations sa Europe.
Mhm.
Wow, this is 2020, and making sure, basically the types of questions that we were asking was how do we make sure that an AI model is not biased?
Yeah.
Is that even possible, right? Given that the creators are humans, which are inherently biased, right? So ganun yung mga flow of questions. And if, for example, it's inherently biased, again, how then can you mitigate it, or up to which extent can you mitigate it? Parang mas ganun siya. So yeah, that was a fun time. And then, the pandemic happened. During this time, 2020, we were I was part of the folks who was eating AI research papers for breakfast. Kasi
Mm.
ito pa yung time nung what do you call this? Chat GPT 2. And during that time, sobrang I was kind of like paranoid. Well, it's crazy. Like, people can do deep fakes now, and like it's like not everyone actually knows about this, but it's kind of like open source kasi. But yeah, basically not it's just in the AI bubble. But during that time, we were already exploring what are the you know, what are the use cases for the good, for the bad. And I believe it was also during this time that you guys created Data Ethics PH, right?
Mm.
So it all started there. Um, so yeah, fast forward to that. This was end of like December 2020. That's when I actually felt that's when I felt the pandemic. So I
Mhm.
kind of got burned out because like
Wow.
I was doing the AI startup, right? It was fun, but then, um doon ko naramdaman na, oh my God, I needed to rest. So December 2020, I quit that AI impact startup, and then I rested for a month. During that time I was thinking, okay, what should I do next? I still wanted to be in tech. I still loved AI, but I wanted to tone it down a little bit. That's why after a month, again, that's when I know I just took a teaching job in Singapore. But this was remote, so it was okay.
Mhm.
But during that time, again, I have like more cognitive load. That's when I actually wanted to learn a new thing. And this was January. I kept seeing in my feed Dodge memes and
Mhm.
like all time highs. And I was like, okay,
Crypto.
what's happening? Yeah, what's happening in the blockchain field? What's happening with crypto? Because like last time I heard about it, I was still in university, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool because it's gonna automate the accounting part because you won't need to actually do balancing because it's there.
Mhm.
But then I fell in love with AI, and yeah, but again during this time, I took a look at it. I studied it, and I was like, it was like kind of like a eureka moment. Oh my God, I thought AI as an industry was already very
Awesome.
fast, meaning 10x, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But what's happening in blockchain during that time was like kind of like 100x.
Yep.
Imagine the internet was being rebuilt from the ground up.
Mhm.
And as a data person, um it also made sense because if you're working in AI data science, the moat was um, whoever actually has data, ikaw yung laging may advantage.
Mhm.
Parang
The
it doesn't
power of it.
matter how great you are, etc. But a person who has better access to quality data, siya yung magiging, yun yung may mas advantage. So parang hindi siya level playing field. And that's known in our industry. But
Mhm.
then with Web3, I was like, wow, it's just also data, but it's all on chain. So
Mhm.
basically now you can just connect the dots because technically everyone has the same kind of on-chain information.
Yep.
And yeah, that's how I dove into the rabbit hole. I did I did all the verticals, trading, etc., etc. And then I ended up in gaming because just looking at the data, that's where it's gonna onboard the next billion people. So that was like my that's how I got into Web3 because I was applying my AI data skill sets and I used it to trade on chain.
Mhm.
And yeah, I used my gains in trading to uh, what do you call this, bootstrap naman a guild. Kasi during that time, that was like before the height of Axie Infinity. So I was able to ride that because again, like if you're just gonna look at it from a data perspective, you can literally see that this is
Mhm.
what's happening on the economic side, on chain, etc. And you can do plays based on that. So ganun yung that's how I got into like Web3 and gaming. And yeah, that was my story. So basically, I applied what I knew from AI data just in a different field,
Mhm.
and yeah.
So you see the two fields converging somehow. Kasi parang ang ramdam ko, I'm not deep into the Web3
Mhm.
end, no. But it seems like in 2022 nagka-inflection ulit. where web3 kind of went into stasis ulit. I don't know, I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. Then
Mhm.
tama chat GPT and stable diffusion and all these
Yeah.
apps suddenly are now at center stage. And I don't know nga if magpapalitan lang sila. Like for example, a recent article said nagplateau na raw yung users of ChatGPT. So it had a very very quick rise and
Mhm.
then nagplateau. So baka it's ripe for another resurgence of kind of the web3 space, and then later magpapalitan na lang sila and eventually converge, no? So you're sitting in both. How do you see
Yeah.
that playing out?
The way I see it actually, again, I didn't expect that the convergence will happen this fast, given nga na yung ChatGPT was released, ChatGPT 3 was really 3.5 or 3 was released like last year, and that's when it became mainstream, right? And now you have ChatGPT 4 and you have this concepts already of like agents, etc. Yung convergence of like blockchain and then gaming and then AI, there's already uh a, an intersection wherein you have games that are autonomous worlds. We call them autonomous worlds. Now it's all on chain and it's run by AI agents, and then you can also play as a human. But um again, hindi ko in-expect na ganito kabilis yung convergence, because uh, one of the reasons also why I went into gaming, aside from the data points that it's gonna be there where you're gonna do mass onboarding for people on blockchain, um I saw it as blockchain gaming is a vehicle so that we can do decentralized research faster. Let me explain what that means, right? In games, we literally call the bots AI, right? Because they're artificially intelligent. Um, so in Dota, you fight with an AI, etc. And in the news, people are also training AI so that they're better than people, right? Basically, we were doing simulations. That's how the gaming industry is related to AI industry, right? But with blockchain gaming industry, we're not doing simulations anymore. We're actually doing real life experiments with
Mm.
people, whatever that form is. Might it be a specific industry or what? And that's what's actually happening. So what happened with Axie Infinity, if you look at it from a historical perspective, or with blockchain gaming, you're able to iterate on an economic model so fast
Mm.
that you basically tested whether it's sustainable or not. And that's what it's currently. This is what is being done in the intersection of like AI, blockchain, and games.
Is
The
that
autonomous worlds part.
reinforcement learning na ba or not yet? Kasi you can have game AI that are quite deterministic, rule based. Yun nga
Yeah.
yung
So
parang yeah, go ahead.
mhm. It's a mix of both, right? Because again, like may reinforcement learning na part, because and meron ding autonomous na nga na part.
Mm.
So some on-chain games, autonomous worlds yung tawag nga sa term na yun, is again, literally people are building different AI agents and then they just see how they interact with each other.
Mhm.
So ang bilis nung yeah, basically ang bilis nung interaction. But with some games, again, like you have people there as players, and then how do you interact with the environment or the AI agents? So ganon. And it's this whole industry that um again, you can package your research as in a form of a game so that you can collect better data.
Mm.
And again, you iterate yeah, you iterate faster on your research problem. So yun yung yeah, that's what's interesting now. But again, that's actually hard to do. Kasi how do you map a problem, and then yeah, how do you map it in a game environment or format so that you can get your thesis tested? Right? Yeah.
I'm wondering nga parang for what's one thing to actually get on board the AI train already. No? It's kind of a big leap for a lot of people. And then
Mm.
the chat GPT phenomena is just a way of democratizing access to it. So building it business as usual, pero yung using it is now broader. I
Mhm.
wonder though how we can find a way to integrate the Web3 component and make it also as democratic as what's happening in ChatGPT. Kasi admittedly, people have the same parang I don't know if it's confusion or aversion towards
Mhm.
Web3. Kasi nga, yun nga,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
requires a very specialized knowledge. Or does it nga ba? Is there a way of making it more democratic?
Um, yes. It's just that the UX right now it's still not there.
Mm-hmm.
It, a good analogy would be when the internet first started, 'di ba, you had to do dial-up, you had to know how to configure it. And
Mm-hmm.
then kung sino yung mga marunong mag-configure, edi sila yung mga nakaka-experience
Access.
sa internet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's still kind of like that right now. Um but again, infrastructures are being developed. I'm not sure how long it will take to reach the critical mass so that people will just use it without knowing that they're actually already using it. Because that's how you know when that's how you know when a technology is already there. When if it's just in the background.
It's very easy to use, no? It's
Yes.
invisible, basically.
Yep. Not in your face.
Oh,
Yeah.
nga. Yeah. Let's jump back to your stories on like teaching, no?
Mm-mm.
I'm wondering if there's any parang tips and life hacks you can suggest to people who are career shifting into AI or career shifting into data.
Ah,
I don't know nga if we should be doing a distinction kasi right now in my head I don't even wanna parang make a very very hard distinction between
yeah.
analytics and AI kasi it's one
Yeah.
discipline for me. Pero syempre other people have other opinions no. Pero in your opinion, how does one switch into AI or what are the first few things that need to be done?
Um, this is funny because like I usually get asked like this question, right? Um, and I throw this question back at them.
Mm,
Um, just because the assumption of AI or data is a very horizontal field,
mm,
meaning you can apply it in any vertical or industry that you want. So I ask them, okay, what what is the kind of problems that you want to solve?
mhm,
Right? Because again, you want to start with something that this person is really interested in, that no matter what happens, whether they fail or succeed, they would still be happy that they actually did it, right?
yeah.
So marami pa ring learnings. And then again, it just so happened that AI or data science is a specific skill set. But if you learn more about something that you are already interested in the first place, then you will be able to actually paano ba? You will motivate yourself further. It's kind of
Mm,
like meta. So I always ask them that. Na parang, okay, what are your interests? What are the questions that you want to ask? Ganun siya. So like you start with that, and then you try to like help them scope it, yung project framework or yung problem statement na talaga. Kasi
mm,
nga you want it na applied. Again, you start with what outcome do you want, right? Again, at the end of the day, it's 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 problem framing and testing the hypothesis. And
mm,
the solutions are just, sorry, the AI or data science are just different tool sets to actually solve that problem. So, for example, let's say I am a Taylor Swift fan, um, and then I want to learn more how um, how Taylor is able to create songs like that, 'di ba? So maybe yun yung goal ko. Parang how do I create songs like Taylor Swift standard or something? You can actually frame that as an AI or data science problem. So it's yeah, that's how I usually yeah, that's how I usually work with a person who wants to go into the industry. And then having that as an anchor point, you can already apply the different like tools and the modules as needed. Ganon.
You know,
Does that make sense?
yeah. What you're saying is giving me a couple of ideas. Because I was talking to this other colleague, and he's into generative art, no,
Mm-hmm.
using yung mga image generation tools. And he was making kind of a big deal pa rin na you need to have an eye for composition, you need to have an eye
Mm,
for art, uh, to be called an AI artist. And ako naman, I wasn't
mm-hmm.
necessarily disagreeing, but I was in a way pushing back na sabi ko, this still sounds like gatekeeping to me, sabi ko. And I think one of the biggest challenges the art world is dealing with, apart from the copyright component, which is a
Mm-hmm.
legal issue, is the thought that with just a prompt, an artwork
Mm-hmm.
can be created. And
Mm,
do you call that art already, or is it just parang an artifact that was created out of a prompt? And for me, the subtle difference is if you prompted the AI to do something with an intention to convey a message or express
mm-hmm.
whatever, even if it's an abstract piece of output, then I would consider it art. Because art is that, ultimately an expression. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is in analytics or data science, for the longest time, the biggest hurdle has been, yun na nga, yung execution of
Tools.
it.
Yeah, yeah, Oh, hello. Sorry, you
No,
got muted, Doc.
yeah, I
Ayun,
accidentally
okay na.
muted myself. And now we're on the verge of having these, parang itong like co-pilot or code
Mm-hmm.
interpreter,
Yeah.
where the AI already takes care of the execution. But then it's more important that the intention of the user is clear. Kasi kung hindi, the
Yep.
code won't run or you won't be able to integrate it to any solution. So parang lumalabas, the AI becomes an extension of the human in that respect. No,
Mm-hmm.
basically it's like an exosuit. You wear an exosuit and you can jump around, but it's up to you where you want to go. It's funny because that seems very obvious to me now. Pero in many other domains, people still think it's man versus machine or human versus machine.
Uh,
'Di ba? Parang sabi
yeah.
ko, it's hard if you frame a problem that way. It has to be
Mm-hmm.
humans have problems to solve and AI becomes parang a bridge to solving it.
Mm-hmm.
Pero directed by a human pa rin. Even if you design
Mm-hmm.
an agent to automatically do something, the original instructions must have emanated from a human. At least up until this point. At some point, maybe AI will be able to
Mm.
create its own agents, and then let's see where that goes eventually. But I don't know. What do you think about that? Does that make sense to some extent to you?
Wait, that's a
Parang
lot.
yeah, yung
Which
parang
one? The AI art first or the human versus machine part?
parang I'm drawing a parallel between the two na the way people
Mm.
approach art mirrors the way people approach analytics. Parang people can't get over the fact that they don't need to do much of the execution anymore, but it's all
Mm.
about intent and message and objective. Parang ganun din sa analytics eh. Parang people can't get over the I need to write Python or whatever, or
Really?
I need to query a database kasi
Really?
95% of your training is on that, and it's not about okay, how do I frame a problem in
The
analytical terms. Parang ganun. No? I don't know,
okay.
what do you think of that?
The way I see it is that again the implementation part, well, again, because it's a matter of doing it, right? That's I associate that as like grunt work,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, your objective when you are doing, like, at least on the analytics side, is you're solving a problem.
Mhm.
And yung tools or ways to get there are just um can be different things and can be faster. So if your objective you have an objective set and a key result. So as long as you actually get an answer, for me, that's a success, 'di ba? Tapos yung process, um the process can be improved, and that's what's happening right now. Is it's we're just iterating on it faster. Kasi nga we get to ask questions more and at a higher level and get the answer faster, so you could get to ask more questions. So the way I see it, even with art, right? We're in the age of like composers. Basically, um you can compose different things. Tas mas mabilis na nga lang of yung iteration. Kasi for example, if you're creating an artwork, yes, you can try to like change this color by painting it. Because the way previous painters did it is, if they didn't like it, they will just paint over it, right? So parang ang nangyari lang is, rather than doing that, painting over several times, you can literally see na para, okay, I want this, 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 and then you can compare, right? And then that's how you compose again what you want to do, or ano yung gusto mo ngang outcome. So yeah, I'm a futurist, and yung yung viewpoint ko on things is really, um we need humans, right? We need to do things that only us can do, right? Meaning, I don't know, the feeling stuff, etc. And if you think about it, the work that we do now from as a modern society is still rooted from, industrial age, right? And yeah, ano ba yung concept mo of like, um what is art, what is work? I think very ano pa rin siya, ang tawag nito, results
Traditional.
pa rin siya of like, yeah, of our previous experiences. But now that we're hitting that inflection point, I think this is the time wherein we will see peak human.
Peak
I'll do
human.
peak human stuff,
Uh-huh.
just because it's gonna be more apparent that there are things that the machines can do better, humans can do better, and then humans and machines can do like uniquely, if that makes sense, diba? We kind of like started that already, when at the turn of the internet, because we are actually spending a lot of our times in the digital world, right? So parang this is nothing new. It's just a different pace altogether, because now yung mga things that the machine can do, ito yung mga ginagawa nga natin from an industrial age point of view, if that makes sense. But if you think about it, um people are creative beings, and itong part na to, ito pa rin yung wala yung AI, yung concept nga ng emergent phenomena. It right now, it's good at like being able to analyze things, or draw the connections between seemingly unrelated things, but to be able to actually create something new, yun pa yung well, that's still being tested or discovered, right? Because once we hit that, that's a totally different gameplay na. Ayun.
Altogether.
I'm not sure if that made sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sabi ko nga, when I first approached you for this, these are the conversations that need to happen. Because people, well, number one, people might be feeling the answers intuitively, but it's nice to have somebody articulate it na ito talaga. And you talked about peak human, no? Certainly it's happening in the creative fields right now, or it's about to happen, like copywriting. Na peak human na yan. Art, debatable, pero I would argue, if it's not disrupting the high end part where you really have these really experienced artists suddenly taken down because their revenues are disrupted, On the other hand naman, it's such a very democratic way of getting more people into the art space who wouldn't normally
Mm-hmm.
be able to get in because yeah, na nga, they
Yes.
lack the execution. Pero they might have the
The
intuition
vision.
and the
Yes.
vision. Yeah, exactly. So okay, given that, and I know it's been a while since you've worked in parang big corporates, no? Like you mentioned,
Mhm.
Gcash and Accenture. How do you think that's potentially going to play out in companies? Kasi nga, that's always been a puzzle for me. You know, I worked in
Mhm.
banks for a long time and worked in IT. Parang ano eh, well, to put it bluntly, IT and technology, digital transformation initiatives, they hardly prosper in general, with a few exceptions. But in general, they hardly prosper because nga they run into these. I don't know if I can generalize the biggest issue, but probably a big one is humans don't want to let go of their roles in organizations, which could now be either augmented or supplanted by technology. I think that's the biggest problem in my view. Parang psychologically we don't want to get automated or we don't want to get we don't want to improve even if you know na the current status quo isn't really working. Your customers hate
Mhm.
you, they're complaining, blah blah blah. I don't know. Any thoughts on that? I mean, or have you ever thought about that? Because that's I think a big problem to crack in many companies.
Yeah. I guess I'm gonna go back to basics, right? Because when people experience change, it's just two things. Either they embrace it or they resist it,
Mm,
right? And what's happening, I guess, at the corporate level is just some people resisting change at scale,
mm,
right? That's the way I see it. But again, if um paano ba, very philosophical kasi
mm,
na I mean, what does it mean to be human, etc. I guess just I think again this started industrial age wherein um we get a lot of our identity from the work that we do,
mm,
right? And I guess that's also one of the reasons why um some people resist that kind of change because it affects their identity. And
mm.
again, especially if majority of their identity they're getting it from their work role, right?
Which is a question
So
mark also pala, no?
yeah,
Like you are
yeah,
not your work, pero for some people
i-
they
yes.
are, no? Yeah.
So parang that's one way of looking at it, right? Um and again, as a futurist, right? The way I see the world is, and we also got to talk about this when we caught up, right? Like there are lots of problems that you know we as a human species could could be solving, right? Para yung progress mo sa society is net positive. But why aren't we doing that, right? Kasi nga misaligned incentives, etc. So parang I think this inflection point is an opportunity for us to actually move towards that direction more,
Mm,
'di ba?
mm,
So parang it's so I find it so weird that in some countries we are solving things like 30-second deliveries, 'di ba? Like you order and you have the thing already within your doorstep in less than 30 seconds. But in other parts of the world, you still don't have electricity. So what's up with that, right? Imagine that's the world that we're kind of like living in. So
mm.
parang we're already talking about, AI stuff and the future and then how many people will probably lose work. But on the upside, right, we can also again do a lot of things or solve a lot of problems that weren't solvable before because it's so expensive. Diba? It's gonna be resource reallocation, and hopefully we point it towards the better problems that we need to solve. Yeah, if that makes sense, right? But in our current model structure, like government and institutions, we would really need support from these big institutions because it's happening at a big scale. And the corporations would definitely also have a lot of role in it because that's our current yeah, that's our current structure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
No, this is really good and profound. And by the way, we're at the hour na pala, no? But we can talk as much as we want. One thing that I'm also kind of on the more pragmatic, I don't know if you want to call it that, pero sometimes it's a cop out. Sinabi mo, let's go to the pragmatic level. Pero for those based in the Philippines, I think most are oblivious to yan yung mga long-term ramifications. Kasi sabi mo nga, the development is unequally distributed. So I think Philippines is an example. No, in NCR we have the luxury to be debating about yung mga higher order issues with AI. Kasi nga we take things like good internet for granted, but everywhere else in the country, it's just a struggle getting online and having a decent conversation about things. Or traffic is another disequilibrium that happens. Parang it's hard to get from point A to point B, so people tend to stand in their spend as much time in one location before moving and risking the travel risk. No, parang I think in that environment, it's very easy to have I would say challenges in terms of implementing change driven by data or AI. Kasi nga, the awareness is not equal. The application might definitely be not equal. And even within a company, parang to put it bluntly, most companies are making money anyway without AI. So why bother getting on it? Only to find out one day na wala na. They've already lost their market to a
Edge.
better
Yeah,
player.
yeah.
Diba? So, yun yung aking thought. Kunyari, call centers are the big bugbear, right? They stand to be disrupted massively. And then we spoke briefly earlier about the manufacturing sector that's already been disrupted by both the lack of competitive edge ng Philippines and also job piracy. People who would have otherwise been electrical engineers have gone to AI or gone to analytics. And then the third leg of the country is OFWs. That's potentially going to get disrupted too, from what I think, because countries like Canada are making it easier for OFWs to migrate and bring their families there. So it's good for them, I think, no? Better. Pero it's going to be bad for the Philippines kasi yung remittance flow na yan that's keeping us afloat, mawawala na yan eventually. I think that's just going to dry up. And in a way, maybe it's inevitable, no? Parang it seemed like a weird structure to have an economy propped up by people working outside the Philippines. Parang it's a weird parang structure rather than building internal capability, economic strength. Parang you're relying on all of these dextrose lines from OFW sa labas. And isa-isa nang puputulin na yan ng mga host countries na. Kasi they want to keep the reserves at home, no? And make it easier for people to go to their country. So I wonder if, from your perspective, there's a uniquely Philippines parang discussion that needs to be had about AI or these technologies. I know it's a hard question to swallow, but kasi pag sinabi AI safety, all this, na yan, copycat na yan from what's happening in California. I mean, we can always interject, no? Pero who are we, to do it?
Yeah.
Pero in the Philippines, ano kaya yung pwede natin pag-usapan that's uniquely Philippines, since we happen to supply a big chunk of the global labor anyway? No?
Okay. Yeah. At the top of my hand, not necessarily relating to the global labor that we provide, but something uniquely Philippines about AI. I would have to go to the fact that the Philippines is the experimental ground for AI data science. And if there's a way that we can actually capture value out of it, diba? That's the way to go. Kasi nga, again, we're the ones who actually experienced firsthand what the results of those are. And then when the model worked here, they just replicated it in US, Europe, etc. I'm talking about Cambridge Analytica stuff, right? So if you can frame that problem and scope it out properly, para nga proper yung I don't know, experimental stuff, I think that's something that we can actually contribute, just because again, it's known, at least in the AI data circles, that if it doesn't work here, it won't work anywhere, right? Like from an AI data perspective. So yeah, that's something that I yeah, just at the top of my head. Because again, like we don't have any strengths on infrastructure, hardware, etc. But what we do have is we have a population that is very social, right? You know, the social media capital of the world, and things like that. Basically, we're an experimental ground, whether we like it or not. And
and everyone speaks
yeah, if
English. Everyone is very literate
yes,
with technology. Blah blah blah. Yeah.
yes. So parang, you know, you, because when you do experiments, you need to have like a um statistical data for it to be significant, right? So, sorry, statistically significant data points for it to actually hold true. And that's kind of like what we've been used as a country for, right? So I don't know if kaya yun, if reframe, um, yeah.
Yeah, kasi
Does that
right
make
now,
sense?
yeah, absolutely. Kasi from another front, like the AAP front, no, which I'm still quite deep in, the discussion is moving towards what kind of regulations can we put in place. And actually, deep inside, I feel it's premature to regulate anything because number one,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the country or the legislators even understand what they want to regulate. But even if,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, they got the experts in the room, they invite all that. Ayan yung ano, what do you want? And right now, the best I can suggest is education. Just teach as many
Mm-hmm.
people as you can. That's already a
Mm-hmm.
big boost. And
Yeah, yeah.
instead of penalties, we should give incentives for people who would build
Yes.
systems the proper way. And of course, that begs the question: what's the proper way? So someone has to prescribe,
Mm-hmm.
something. And maybe at best, you can argue for some sort of let's say impact.
Infrastructure support.
Yeah,
Sorry,
well,
go.
no, I was gonna argue
Yeah.
muna nga impact assessment. So
Ah.
without preventing people from doing it, give them some sort of a checklist. Now, okay, as long as you complete this checklist, somebody signed off. At least if it blows up,
Mm-hmm.
I know who signed off on it and I can check. The infra part is interesting, kasi yun nga. I think people underestimate the hardware component of
Yeah.
these systems, and I don't think it takes a lot of hardware, to be honest. But if it's something that the government can actually support us with, that would be great, no? Yun yung interesting done.
Yeah.
Are you there? Nawala kayong video mo. Ayan, there you go.
Ay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nag-blink. All right. Well, we're at the
Mm-hmm.
hour. Maybe we can save some more topics for the next one. No? I expect
Mm-hmm.
this to be a continuing conversation. But before we end, did you have any like parting shots or anything that you want to express? I mean, knowing everything we've talked about, like AI, Web3, education, dami, no? Like
Yeah.
any big soundbite that you want to leave the people before we conclude?
Yeah, I guess what do you call this? Where for students or like young people, right? We're actually at the day and age wherein you have more um choice of what you can do,
Mhm.
right? So don't be boxed in what it is that's current. Kasi nga there will be a lot of um jobs that might not exist yet, wherein you will be the ones who will create it. And follow whatever is fun for you, because you will that's how you will know that that's that something is for you. It's fun for you, and it's easy for you, but some people might not experience it that way as well. So if you kind of like find that, double down. It's really explore exploit strategy. And I guess with all these tools now readily available, you can experiment and iterate more also. Yun lang.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Well said. So anyway, thanks a lot, Bernadette Misa. Hope to have you again on another conversation. And yeah, all the best with your projects and hope to hear from them soon.
Yeah. Thanks also, Doc. Okay. Bye bye.